Richard, what's your favorite color?
Purple. Purple is my favorite color. I found out recently that nobody other than royalty used to be allowed to wear purple because it was so expensive. So now I'm in my grandiosity. I'm like, that's the color for me.
Okay, guys, I'm done. Thanks, Richard.
Thank you. Yeah.
Next, anybody? Or you can sell yourself. So people come to my meetings and they want to spill their story. So here's your chance to spill your story to Richard. Spill your sob story. Start whining about how you're greatest victim.
Actually, if Richard, if you wouldn't mind, I think a lot of us have watched your very specific topic videos, but not a lot of us know your general history or general story. So if maybe you could give us just a 90-second background, that'd be great.
Sure. What you would know me for if you see me before would be Spartan Life Coach. That came off the back of a self-defense website that I was running for about 10 years called Street Fight Secrets. That was my background, was a martial arts instructor. And I found a lot of guys that I was working with were struggling with issues to do with their relationships and interpersonal boundaries. So I started Spartan Life Coach is to help guys who are into martial arts deal with their interpersonal boundaries. That's why it's called what it's called and why it started that way. And then it developed into something else the more I explored why people would have problems interpersonally with their boundaries. And we started to look at predatory personality types and childhood trauma and the issue of codependency. Then things became a little bit clearer. So I basically went wherever my customers wanted me to go. And narcissism was a big factor in that.
So do you have any formal training on this stuff, or are you self-taught on all these topics?
I have a degree in psychology, and I've worked, I'm one of the few people with a degree in psychology you'll ever meet who's actually had a couple of jobs using the degree. So I worked for the British Probation Service, trying to keep drug addicts out of jail with cognitive behavioral therapy. And I worked for a while in the British education system, delivering psychology-based seminars on to help kids get through exams, to help teachers to teach, and on emotional intelligence. That kind of thing. But I don't have a master's degree or a doctorate or anything like that. Just a normal degree.
So do you know what your end goal is? Do you have like a dream job in mind, or are you just sort of feeling your way through it all?
Well, I started Street Fight Secrets because I'm a businessman, and that's I wanted to have an online business back in 2003 when I was doing the seminars. I wanted something else. I heard the term passive income, and I was like, oh, that sounds nice. Passively pay for the fuel in the car and pay the rent and stuff. I'll get into that. Ambitious. So I consumed a lot of material by a Canadian chap who sadly passed away called Corey Rudell, that taught you how to build an online presence online.
Sound, mute you, keep going. Corey Mendel, or Canada guy. Passive income. I fell into that with Amway.
The what? Sorry.
Amway. And
Amway. Yeah. Did it work
out? My social skills limited me.
They limited you. Is Amway a door-to-door thing?
It's a multi-level marketing pyramid scheme.
Okay.
So you want to get your friends in, and then you use motivation and
that sounds like torture to me. It sounds like really hard work.
It's hard, yeah, really.
You know what's a lot easier is when you find a niche area where people have a lot of problems. You write them an ebook, and then you send them to that ebook. Oh, it's lovely. It's so nice.
Oh, you've hacked the territory. Yeah.
I hacked it back in 2005, but I'm so dumb. I just did what they told me to do, and everybody was like, "Are you actually making money?" And I went, "Yeah."
And you're making money, yeah.
Yeah, and they were like,
did what they said.
Yeah, I was like, "How did you do that?" I was like, "Well, I followed their fucking instructions. The multi-millionaire told me what to do, and I did what he said, and then money came." So there's going to be, I think, to your point, Jeff. I really, really love sales and marketing. I really love business, commerce, absolutely love it. So I've been saying for years, I will go back to that, to teaching that, because that's what I really, really love it. And it's never been more relevant than now with the lockdown. Like, everybody's going to move online. And I can help people make money, which is also a big part of overcoming codependency, is having the independence to make your own cash.
I think a lot of people who study this sort of stuff, they're very introspective. A lot of them are introverts, and it's really interesting that you have this sort of extroverted, salesy experience and interest. I think that really helps get your messages out there. A lot of people, probably most of the people in this group, you know, we sort of open up when we have these meetings, but we certainly don't put ourselves out there. We certainly don't put our problems out there. And the fact that you do that, I think it's probably been a big part of your success.
It took a lot of training to be able to do that, because my natural inclination is towards introversion, and that's, you know, I'm NLP trained, and so I did a lot of training to get to the point where I could fake having social skills.
I'm sorry, what's
They're all
NLP?
fake.
Sorry?
All this persona is fake.
I'm a very, very, very quiet, introverted guy. My favorite thing is silence.
So I'm sorry, what is NLB training?
NLP.
Sorry?
What is NLP?
Oh, NLP is neuro-linguistic programming. It was created by Grinder and Bandler in the 70s. A mathematician and a linguist came together, and they stole all the good bits of psychology and put it together, mixed up with some hypnosis, and unleashed it on the world.
Thank you.
So, Deef, maybe we should just dive right in. We've got a lot of stuff to talk about in 39 minutes with Richard.
Okay. Any other imminent questions from a codependent who wants to hijack the meeting?
All right, so all right, I'm not going to hijack. I'll just
Stacy.
So this is a type of posturing where you call people out before they try to hijack the meeting. Then they're quiet and they're more passive.
And then this is passive aggressive. See this? Called passive aggressive.
Well, I don't see it as fake if you are naturally a introvert, but you wear the hat of an extrovert in order to be in order to do what you feel you believe you need to do.
Yes, that's true. It's fake is not really the right word for it. I should say trained. My dishwasher is beeping at me. Please come with me across my kitchen.
You get the tour.
Yeah, you get the tour.
Home. This wasn't promised. This is a surprise reveal.
Yeah, this is yeah. You're gonna find out way more than you bargained for. No, yeah, trained is the right way of saying it, and
trained social skills.
It did. I struggled terribly with social anxiety as a kid. Like, I would, you know, if I walked into a shop and bought something, I'd start sweating and shaking. So it did take quite a bit of training to get that out. And I do still struggle now. Like, if you ever see me at
what happened?
Froze.
Did he get stuck, or am I stuck? Who's stuck?
No, he hung
he's
up.
stuck. You're stuck.
Are you stuck?
Yes.
This is his anxiety. He actually froze.
Look at his anxious face.
Yeah, he froze in anxiety. And from a tech issue or something. But this is interesting. Oh, he's got his sound sort of working.
Almost every single time.
Now he's coming back.
He's still in the meeting. Yeah.
You dropped out, Richard. You
abandoned us.
dropped out for a good minute there.
We were so sad.
I don't think my Wi-Fi enjoyed me moving around the room. I won't do that again.
Okay, you were saying you grew up socially anxious and you had to train yourself. Even now
Yeah,
you go in public.
that's it. Yeah. It was torture. Just.
Uh-oh.
It was torture to to learn to be less socially anxious? Let's fill in the story.
This is torture.
Is he saying abandonment issues or,
No, he
Not
has
really.
anxiety
No,
issues.
no.
He hasn't brought
Anxiety.
up
but
abandonment
are they
issues.
due to abandonment like all the rest of us?
I'll see if I can dig into that in a moment. Right now,
Yeah.
I've got to get his signal back. No, this is fun. This is like he's a robot ghost, a sci-fi thing. He comes in and out, gets converted.
Oh, Richard, you're back now.
Then he switches boxes in this damn gallery view. So
I'm just trying to confuse you. I've switched connections. I'm hoping that this will be a stronger connection now.
Are
Sorry,
you
go
on Starbucks or off of Starbucks now?
So,
oh, I caught you said something about torture, and then you broke it.
yeah. The nerves and the inability to speak in public was becoming torturous. So it really was essential for my personal life to learn to get past that.
So, Richard, when you were younger, you said you were socially anxious, and now you're out there. Was there a turning point? Like, what happened where you decided to sort of flip the switch and put yourself out there and share with the world?
Yes, goals. I discovered that I liked goals, and that if I wanted to get attention from them, I couldn't just stand there shaking and sweating in the corner, because they generally don't respond well to that.
And the
They wouldn't
method,
attack me. I would just turn invisible. I'd just be non-visible. So I was very motivated to learn.
Then you made the space in
But
your
for-
life to be able to develop and pursue those skills rather than being sidetracked by getting drawn into other people's needs or dramas or.
No, he wanted girls. Hot girls. Wasn't that what you said?
Goals.
Yeah. And that motivated him to
That is the goal.
not be so silent and tortured, because then you're just watching the hot girls and you get nothing.
Right.
Is that right? I've been there.
That's it.
Don't complicate it, you codependents.
Well,
You were trying to be a high and mighty person. She just wanted some ass.
I know, but I'm talking about how to make this applicable to all of us. How we.
No,
can-
this is Richard's story, not your story.
No, I know. I'm not
Stop
saying.
fucking
I'm
up
not
his story.
imposing my
You
story.
only
I'm
have
trying
40
to-
minutes with him.
I'm trying to gain the benefit, or have everyone gain the benefit of his example.
That's later. After he leaves, we'll unpack it and customize it for your story.
Well, I think the applicability for everybody is everybody wants love. Everybody wants intimacy. And for people who would identify as codependent, it's very difficult to get the kind of relationship that you want if you can't ask for it. And if you're trying to hide and be seen at the same time, it's like trying to drive a car with the brakes on. It just doesn't work very well. I'm pretty sure everybody here probably knows what I'm talking about.
what helped you most overcome that,
Mhm.
or
Let's work
to
on that.
separate some?
Well, that's a good thread we can continue on, but let's see how that falls first.
What was the question, sorry?
Well, I think Marima, you said you wanted help to work on that. Is that?
No, what helped him most to, what
Oh, what
helped you
helped-
most
Richard, what helped
to
you most?
overcome,
To overcome what?
or at least different methods that helped you the most overcome both social anxiety and so on, everything that you talked about to save the time. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a hard question to answer. And the truth is that you always need a kind of exposure therapy. So I would develop the ability, and then I'd go out and use it, and then I get burnt, and it hurts and it's risky. But over time, with repetition, you build calluses and you build the skill of it. There are no cerebral solutions to this. It's an action thing. You have to do it, and your brain's not stupid. You can't just NLP it and go, "Oh, you're confident now," because your brain will be like, "No, we're not." That's nonsense. You have to build reference experiences over time, and it does take time. It does take effort. It's not an easy process, but very, very rewarding. Extremely rewarding.
Richard, is grit a good word for that?
Sorry.
Is grit a good word for that?
Yeah, you will need grit. You will need a work ethic, and you need to be clear in your intent. Like, if you want to be more social and you want to speak to more people, you need to have that as a very, very clear intent. And then don't let yourself off the hook. That means at the supermarket, that means when you're walking down the street, that means all the time. If you want to be more sociable and you want to be more extroverted, you've got to be practicing all the time.
Okay, let's follow that. Don't let yourself off the hook. Can we stay on that point?
Sure. The
I'd make an
unconscious.
argument that codependents almost hang out with other codependents who constantly let people off the hook.
Yeah, when we let ourselves
Have you
off the
seen
hook. It's codependency probably, I suspect, comes from being parentified as a child, which means you've experienced some emotional incest, probably from a parent with quite highly narcissistic traits, where they forced you to act in a role that wasn't appropriate for a child, where you basically became their parent or their confidant, which means that your modality from childhood for interacting with others is self-sacrificing and false. It's rooted in role-playing, which makes it very difficult as an adult to form authentic bonds with people because you never show up. You're never being you. You're never vulnerable.
You're fake, or you're trained, whatever.
Or trained.
You're annoying, but keep going.
So that's something that everybody has to seek to overcome in their own way.
Do you think that there's any like one key to overcoming that behavior?
Give me the one secret.
We talk about like
Expert guru, save me codependent with one answer so I don't have to do that exposure therapy and get repeated rejections and suffer and do the hard work. I want to use your hard work. Give me an answer, Richard, right now.
Can we mute him?
Huh?
Let's mute him. Let's mute D.
There's a special chi point on the back of your neck, but you have to squeeze it 3 times in the moonlight while spinning around anti-clockwise.
I just mean, is there one thing that you held on to that helped you in your process? Like, I know that that's going to be different for everybody, but like, was there one thing that helped you to get out of autopilot and just, you know, going down that same route every single time?
I think to really, if there is going to be one thing, I'm going to cheat and say it's a very broad thing, and that would be you do need quite a high degree of self-awareness, and you need to have a philosophical commitment to being honest with yourself, which if everybody in this world took it upon themselves, the world would change overnight. If we just stop lying to ourselves, we can still lie to each other. That's fine. You're still allowed to lie to each other. But if we stop lying to ourselves, everything would change instantly. And so after an interaction, or I'd get off the bus and I'd be like, well, you didn't say goodbye to the driver. And one part of my brain goes, oh, I don't need to, and he's busy. And the other part of my brain says, oh, because you're scared. You're scared to say goodbye to the driver. So then I would pull myself up on it and go, okay, are you going to stay in the comfort zone or are you going to become visible? And I'm still struggling with that to this day. I still am working on that. Overcoming narcissistic abuse, not a problem. Overcoming CPTSD, completely doable. Overcoming codependence is hard, very, very tough.
Well, it sounds like you're talking even deeper about overcoming bad habits or forming new habits, and you know, not letting yourself off the hook. And whenever you're in a situation where you reflect and say, well, I didn't act the way I want, the way I think I should be, the way I want to be, so I'm not going to let myself off the hook. And then maybe after a while, the mind doesn't like the dissonance of the back and forth. So instead of the easy way out of saying, okay, I'll just slide back into my old habits, if you just keep at it and keep creating that dissonance, eventually the good habits will take over more automatically, where you don't have to.
Yeah. So for me with my brain, it's like, oh, it's just easier just to say hi, just start the conversation so that there's not the hassle afterwards. And you learn to like it. You learn to find it safe. You can talk to people. Everybody's basically the same, barring a few complete nutcases out there. Everybody's just trying to get through the day. And there's always going to be that commonality. And because I think a little bit autism spectrum, I had to go all the way around the houses to find that. And I was sat there going, okay, how do I know that that's true? Because I don't think people are safe. And then I go, well, when people watch a film, everybody understands what the film means. And when people do micro expressions in a film, like I say, your car's on fire, and the other person goes, oh, everybody watching that knows what it means. So that to me proved there was a commonality of experience, and you can tap into that commonality of experience. It's not completely uniform, but it is communal. And a lot of people who are raised in highly stressful, abusive environments, like the one I was raised in, we lose that. We lose our connection with that. We lose that commonality. The other one was stand-up comedy. So Stacey, if you want to hack stand-up comics, study them, but don't enjoy them. Don't just enjoy it. Study what they're doing. Stand-up comics are experts at referencing this commonality of experience indirectly. and normal people who don't have these issues, they do that with no effort. They do it effortlessly, and we all know what we're talking about, right? And I would watch that as an outsider, as a kid, and I'd be like, I don't know what the fuck you're all talking about. I don't have that. I don't know what this is. I'm on the outside. I feel like an alien that's been beamed into the planet here. So I had to sort of think in my own weird Asperger's-y way around it to, okay, the fact that stand-up comic is a job that exists proves that there's a commonality of experience. Does that make sense? Like studying stand-up comics to see where the meta-communication lies?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I actually go to those all the time, so that'll be easy.
Oh, that's cool.
Thank you.
No problem.
I saw some threads that could be interesting. So commonality of human experience. I don't know if you've covered that much on your videos.
No, I don't. I mean, you've got to understand that, like, there is that one of the reasons why I'm happy to come and talk to you guys, and I'm happy to come and talk to the groups, is because Spartan Life Coach is in its own historical arc, and there's certain things I can't talk about because the audience isn't ready for it. They just can't. They just can't deal with it. And
Why do you think they're not ready for it? What's distasteful, or is it not allowed to be talked about? Is it too vulnerable?
There's a sort of a thing I've managed to get my head around intuitively, like where the majority of people are up to there, and they're in, like, the majority is in a certain place in their own process, and this is just too far ahead. This is like black belt material for white
black belt level stuff.
Yeah.
So advanced.
Yeah.
Is it too painful?
It could be too painful, mate. It could be. Like, to hear that, nobody wants to hear, hey, you've lost out on the best years of your life because you had a fucked up childhood. Okay, thank you and good night. How do you sugarcoat that? How do you, it's hard. So I am going to do it, and I'm prepping the ground for it, but it's the way I do it. I have to be careful. And to be honest with you, I'm aware that as much as I have exposure there, it's actually quite a confined space because it has this weight, it has a gravity, and you kind of have to go along with it. Or I have to create a different channel, which I have done now, which I actually just started uploading to today.
That's an interesting angle that could be useful for people in the group, that the confined space aspect of being a sort of public celebrity or a YouTube person. Does it create a sort of reverse codependence where you're sort of trapped by the audience or their expectations and comfort level, or am I reading wrong?
Yeah, no, you're actually very, very on the money, probably more than you realize. I'm writing a book at the moment, a semi-autobiographical about overcoming CPTSD, narcissistic abuse, and codependence. And I've realized that Spartan Life Coach started as one thing, but now is basically me reliving the, what is it called? Repetition compulsion to please my mother. I was my mother's priest. I was my mother's psychotherapist. And the average age of the women who follow me is the ages at which my mother used me when I was a kid. And I wrote this on this couch 2 days ago, and I was like, I'm gonna have to fucking not do this shit anymore. Because I'm in a Spartan Life Coach now is repetition compulsion. I'm speaking to people who I don't, about a subject that I'm no longer massively interested in,
And you're
because
helpless
that's what
by that.
they want. So it's now a new manifestation of childhood trauma.
So with all your knowledge and your self-healing, you're still falling into traps of repeating the same patterns of your childhood.
I would say this, like we look at the overwhelming majority of mental health issues, and once you start dealing with your health, you drop drugs, prescription or recreational, you drop alcohol, you eat better, you deal with your emotional flashbacks, a ton of that just drops. It goes. Codependency for children who were raised in bad environments is tough. I was listening to a business coaching tape today, and I chose one. I was like, oh, I'll listen to some motivational business coaching thing. So I got David Goggins' one, You Can't Hurt Me. And I was like, oh, this is going to be super motivational. It's just going to be all about going for it and being a Navy SEAL and crushing your life's challenges. And it's all about childhood trauma. It's all about watching his mother get beat up by his father and the experience. And you just think, God, this is the key. This is everywhere. This is a universal, ubiquitous experience.
So that's one of your observations, and I can sort of see where you're going there. But then what's the challenge, or what's the missing element for healing codependence?
Again, deep question. My suspicion is that if you're neurotypical, so if you're raised in a normal environment as a little child, and it doesn't even need to be like, your parents don't need to be like wonderful. They just need to not hate you. So if your parents don't hate you and want you to die, and they're basically interested in you like a normal fucking person should be, then what happens is your interactions with them, they sort of they give you a sense of value, and you internalize them. And once you've internalized them, you now have an inner parent that functions. For those of us without that, we're missing a big chunk of software. So the computer doesn't run right because you probably don't have an internalized parent that says, you're good, so good things should happen to you. Everything's okay. Everything's going to be okay. Don't do the shit thing. Do the thing that's good for you. Okay? Okay. Bye. That's what should be happening. For a codependent, that shit isn't running. It's not there. So then we have to find ways of, I think the solution would be, how do we find ways of artificially installing that software so that we have a chance at some semblance of normality in the future?
So for someone who's an audience of the experts or even your teaching tools, wouldn't it be easy for those codependents to externalize you as their parent and just fall into the same trap?
Right, exactly. Which is why I have to fight so hard. So I can't talk about this because they're desperate for me to be their cult leader. Yes. And I'm desperate for that not to fucking happen. So I don't want them attaching to me. So I have to not say everything that I want to say. I have to give them enough stuff in a format that keeps them not attaching to me. I didn't sign up for this, man. I just wanted to teach some self-defense guys and soldiers how to fucking do better in there. To just learn how to say no. But it's become this whole other thing now.
Last night I had a conversation and someone said that, are you happy running the meetup? Why aren't you putting your needs first? And then I sort of shared your same experience of being trapped by the system, where the other people's capability of being hearing it or following, I have to meet that.
Right. So if it's a choice, it's fine. But if it's neurotic, it's not fine. It's not at the point where we're going, oh, I want to do this, but I feel way more comfortable and way less stressed if I'm doing what other people want. Then you're still trying to please mommy. You're still trying to please daddy.
Yeah. So if you fall into the role of being a codependent and then you lose yourself because you're afraid of pissing people off to the point where you just kill your needs, suffocate your needs, then that's to the extreme of codependence.
Yeah.
But there's still this codependence level where even you having the mantle and the experience, you have to face this energy of those people wanting you to be their cult leader.
Yes. Yes.
You have to spend an inordinate amount of energy dealing with that, or not?
I don't. I mean,
or you have to silence yourself or limit yourself.
I and like from 2017 to now, this has been my primary focus for me personally in my own growth and my own healing. So I don't expend an awful lot of energy on it. I did. The reason why 2017 was important was because I did it so much. I got very, very sick. I went to America and I did 3 seminars in the major cities of America and was traveling for a month. And then at the end of that, my ear turned black and I got shingles in my ear and in the facial nerve because I was so exhausted. And it was, they said to me, you could have full facial paralysis and lose the hearing in one ear. And I was like, okay, I need to have a little rethink about this. Yeah. So from there, I have gotten better. It's just recently the latest thing, like literally 2 days ago, I was writing it down and I was like, ooh, I'm still there, man. I'm still being the psychoanalyst. I'm still being the priest, the confessor. And I don't know whether this is really, I am much more of I don't think this is naturally who I am. I think I'm quite a goofy, regular guy who just likes guy stuff. I like UFC and drinking with my mates and punching each other and just being a divvy. That's who I am. But I was made this by highly narcissistic parents who would only give me any semblance of attention. My father wanted a little philosopher and my mother wanted a psychoanalyst. So here I am.
Still continuing that role, right?
Yeah.
You can't get out. So let's try to switch this to Eastern philosophy.
The what, sorry?
Eastern philosophy or Buddhist wheel of samsara.
Yeah, I mean,
your cycle is still continuing.
The karmic cycle is still continuing. Yeah. So from the Eastern point of view, it would require a sort of a traumatic breaking that would be an enlightenment that would break the cycle. But all the mystics are really trying to break intergenerational trauma, I think.
So I would frame it that the trauma is a premature initiation.
That's interesting.
And a lot of the healing is trying to revert the trauma or patch it up. So patch it up. That's a portal that can lead to the outside of the wheel of samsara and break out of that karma cycle.
Yeah, and perhaps that's what the work is to, if it was a premature initiation, to take the pain of the premature initiation and to put it back together so that it's a meaningful initiation that's not premature. And there is an initiatory element, I think, to this. I think that's a useful metaphor.
Well, no, your ego container was just for your baby, or in the theory. The initiation breaks you open to you becoming a caterpillar to a butterfly. It's a totally different new container after the initiation process. But since our society doesn't have space holders or elders to hold space while you're in this vulnerable initiation spot.
Yeah.
No one knows how to get through it.
Yeah, well, that's it, isn't it? Is killing the shamans, killing the elders, killing the mystics was something that was done very, very deliberate.
Did you go through some shaman guide in the past, and what was that story?
When I was, I think I was 30, I was with a girl. She was Chinese, but she was from Malaysia, and we had a very bad relationship. And she knew towards the end that I was going to split up with her, so she did some Malaysian magic on me called Bomo, where they put period blood in your rice and then feed it to you. Use some magic spells, and it's a love binding spell. And her mother sorry?
No.
Yes. What?
Yes. What has happened?
About that.
Kill a story.
I was like, this rice is kind of salty.
Oh.
But I ate it. I was like, I'm not rude. I'm not a rude person. I'm going to eat it.
You ate it?
You ate it.
Huh?
The love spell.
Yeah, I had no idea. I didn't find out until later. Her mother.
Oh no.
Oh no.
My mother came to me and said, my daughter's put a spell on you. My daughter put a spell on you. And I felt like I'd had a spell put on me. So because at the time I was very into magic, spirituality, the type of martial arts I was doing is very much in that realm. I was like, well, she put a spell on me. I need to find somebody stronger than her to break the spell. So I went to Malaysia. I went to where they're from to find somebody who could undo the Bomo magic that had been put on me. And eventually, it's a long, long story, but I found there's a Sufi mystic in Kuala Lumpur that I started working with, and he helped me to eradicate this dark spell.
I gotta know how they did it. I gotta know.
Well, you gotta go to Malaysia.
Well,
How'd they do it?
I went, it's a really weird story. I went to Malaysia, to Kuala Lumpur, and one of my best friends from childhood, he'd moved there anyway. So I was hanging out with him, but he knew why I was there, and he knew the goal that I'd been involved with. And we became, through a series of coincidences, we met this girl who's a famous newscaster in Kuala Lumpur. She's also a championship horseback archer, which you guys probably don't know is a thing, but like there's horseback archery competitions that go across the world. It's very popular with Muslims because I think I'm right in saying, according to the Prophet Muhammad, the 3 best sports were archery, swimming, and horseback riding. So that was considered like a good thing, a good sport, a worthy sport for Muslims to engage in. So I meet this girl. Her trainer is a fairly famous guy who's called Pak Din. He worked with a guy called Jason Scott Lee, who played Bruce Lee in one of the Bruce Lee story movies. You can look this guy up on there are videos of him on YouTube. He's a little Malaysian dude, Pak Din, and I met him in Kuala Lumpur. She agreed to introduce me to him. She was like, "Oh, is that you're looking to get Bomo reversed?" And I said, "Yes." This sounds crazy in the West, but over there, that's totally normal. Like you can go and say, somebody's put a love spell on me, I need it fixing, and they'll be like, would you like the Chinese solution, the Indian solution, or the Malaysian solution? I was like, I'll take the Malay one, please. So
Wait, I'm sorry to interrupt, but was this spell to get it so you wouldn't leave her?
Yes. Yeah, she had own problems. Like they came over when she was a kid to England, and Daddy left them in England when she was 4. And so the mother didn't really speak English, still doesn't to this day. And so they were just totally abandoned. So there's a big father abandonment complex there. It turned her histrionic. And she's a good looking girl. So she was totally obsessed with her own sexual attractiveness, but it made her very aggressive towards men, very nasty towards men. So she used the sex magic, the love spell to try and make me stay. So that's, but I knew there was something wrong with me. I totally knew that there was a major issue. So that's why I went because it's not easy for us to get to Malaysia from England. There's like a 14-hour flight. So that's why I went there to get it fixed.
But you didn't say what they did to undo the spell.
Because if I tell you, you'll think I'm crazy.
No, I might think it anyway. Who cares? You'll never see me again. I gotta know. I'm sorry.
Is it a simple story? Yeah, share it.
So the guy's a Sufi, so it's a mystic form of Islam. So he met me and he said, I can see that you've had a love spell put on you, and that your heart is broken, and that your spirit is broken. In Malay, they call it samangat. He said, your samangat has been destroyed by somebody. So I can help you, but I need to know that you're not a bad person. So you need to come and do some archery. And the thinking is, if you can use the old Malay bows, not the modern bow, these shitty old Malay bows, and you can hit the target. I think some of you are Christians, right? Any Christians? No? Wow.
Yes.
I'm surprised. Okay. Well, sin, the word sin is a Greek term for missing the target in archery. So within the Abrahamic traditions, there's this alignment with aim and being able to hit targets and being righteous. So he said to me, you've got to be able to hit the target. So I went to the woods with him, did the thing, eventually hit the target. And he said, now I'm going to help you. I'm going to start training you in this system, which is a martial arts system, but it's a spiritual system called Silat.
Awesome.
And I said, fine, let's go. And he said, no, I can only teach you in your dreams. And I went, okay, great. I'm really fucking glad that I came all the way here and did all this. If I rewind, I have done Silat before with an English guy here in the UK when I was a kid. And he claimed he'd only been taught in his dreams. And I was like, not case. Anyway, I go there. This guy tells me he's going to teach me in my dreams. And guess what? He starts teaching me in my dreams. And that has been going on ever since I met him. He still comes once, twice a week. There's him and a bunch of other people, and they come into my dreams, and we do different things together. There's different things that need to be done, and that's when the project took off. Was because this whole project is rooted in Sufi mysticism and magic. I can see you had a question there, Stacey. At least one.
I've got a lot of questions for you now, and as you keep talking, I have more and more and more. But that's not really fair. But I think that's really amazing. So you were able to break the spell. And
Slowly, yeah.
Honoring your time limit. It's 40 minutes in, so you're welcome to.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
We're happy to entertain you.
I'm aware I haven't actually given you guys very much of anything that's useful to do with narcissism or codependency. So if you want me to talk about something like that, I'm more than happy to try and help.
This is part of the root of codependency, the bigger thing about this shared belonging. You're developing belonging with this dream training and the Sufi mystical stuff.
Yeah,
that's
which
the fabric underneath humanity.
Right. There's a universality, and I was a very traumatized guy at the time. I was very, very mentally ill, and I was looking for solutions, and I went there. So there's a part of my brain that's scientific, and it has a Jungian answer, which is that this is all archetypes. It's all out of my unconscious. The guy knew what I wanted. It's an exotic location to me. I was in a Malaysian jungle. I'm from a city in the north of England. So it's a very impressive environment. If it had happened here, I don't know that the same experience would have taken place.
Sure.
So he may just be a great hypnotist who put a metaphor inside of my mind, and what at a certain point it doesn't even really matter. It doesn't even really matter what the truth of it was. What we found was that there's like we were saying, like Deep's saying, there's a universality to human experience. We've been here before, we will be here again. There are lessons that need to be learned. And without going off into the religious side of it, because I'm not Muslim, I'm not particularly Christian, I'm open-minded, but there is evil in the world. I think we can all agree that. And that evil needs to be fought. And that's why they agreed to help me. So it was a quid pro quo. I was told, like, we can help you with your individual problem, but you owe us. You have to go out and help people. And the specific language that was used was, you have to help people fight the demons of the apocalypse. So that's what I'm here doing.
Demons of the apocalypse?
Yeah.
So do you follow Aaron Dowdy?
Who's
No.
that?
But you delve in the fourth dimension, I'm assuming, right?
What's the fourth dimension?
Oh, okay. So just altered states of being. But that's okay.
Okay.
I'll let other people talk. Okay.
Yeah. I guess so. Altered states of being. I'm totally open to that. I'm totally open to that. Especially since that experience and some of the stuff that's happened in the last 5 years. I've seen it. I've seen it play out. I think that we're seeing it play out at the moment. Yes, sir.
Ma'am. Yes, I have a question. Deep said, and I've had the experience that I have special gifts, I don't know what to call it, where, as Stacey had said, which is what I had talked to someone about, like being in different dimensions, like the fourth and fifth dimension. We are a 3D dimensional world, but sometimes there are individuals that can see in another dimension. They can operate in another dimension. And you're just speaking about some of this. So do you feel like you have special gifts now or tools? I don't know what to call them.
No, I don't. Well, Not in like the sense of like psychic gifts or anything like that. If I do have a gift, it's the ability to talk. So, and I can make complicated subjects easy.
In layperson terms.
Yeah, if I have a gift, it's that. To the intradimensionality point, I think that we all exist in multiple dimensions at the same time. Again, this is not something I can get into on a channel where I'm followed by people, some of whom are schizophrenic. And I used to talk about this on the channel, and then people who were really not very well would overattach to me. They're like, yes, you're my star father from the Pleiades. I was told to, and I'll be like, So you got to be careful. But yeah, I think everybody is existing in multiple dimensions at the same time. And at some point in the journey of overcoming childhood trauma and codependency, you must have a spiritual perspective. There's no ceiling there's no end to the healing unless it's with some sort of a spiritual perspective. There has to be, because
Richard, can you talk a little bit more about that? Because I would definitely not consider myself spiritual. I'm very intellectual, but I have a lot of trauma.
Carlos wants to maybe get in on the Pinsec a lot, but
can you actually hear me or not?
Yeah, I hear you.
Oh, okay, great. What did you feel when you were under this spell?
Do you remember in Lord of the Rings, whenever Frodo put on the ring and he went into like a weird grey underworld?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like that. It was like that.
Did you have visions? I was in Malaysia, and I know the Pencastilat really well, and it's all about the spiritual conditionings. So what kind of blood was used? Do you know?
Hers.
Period. Menstrual blood.
Hers.
And you knew that, and
after.
Oh, I knew it after. I didn't know it before.
So would you say that once you found out and then you did your research, it overwhelmed your mind and you started believing in it?
Say that again. Sorry, mate.
Once you found out that it was blood and it was some sort of ritual, do you think that your mind probably went on panic and started believing, like a self-fulfilling prophecy, like a tunnel vision sort of situation?
I think the most honest answer I can give you to that is no, I don't believe that. But I am trained, like my psychology degree was a very rigorously scientific one. You couldn't say Freud or Jung on my degree. It was behavioralism or nothing. If you couldn't see it, you couldn't measure it, didn't exist, and they didn't want to talk about it. So I answer you subjectively as a human being. No, I don't believe that. But the science part of my brain acknowledges what you're saying and says, yeah, we have to, as a philosophical, rational human being, I have to have that opportunity. That possibility has to remain there. Yes.
And so with that possibility is what you wanted to go and figure out how to reverse it.
No, I believed at the time and believe now that the top level narrative is the real narrative, that there is a spiritual world, that people put spells on each other. It's perfectly commonplace. That what we call domestic violence, that what we call childhood trauma, that what we call wars, whatever, is actually a battle between good and evil, and it's a fundamentally spiritual one.
Most of us don't have space in our life to really deeply explore some of those mystical traditions or
we do in the lockdown, John. This is all we got time for. That's what the lockdown's for, is to give us time. The coronavirus is so that we can reclaim our corona crowns, reclaim our halos and take the opportunity. Alex, to the point of being an intellectual, there's a good little interview with a guy called Friedkin and Richard Dawkins that came out 3 days ago. The gateway to anything spiritual for an intellectual, a pure scientist, is always going to be in that which we do not know, is in that which is still undefined, which in science is the majority of stuff. We know a fraction of a percentage. We don't know everything else. So what I would say is to a pure intellectual, to a scientist, as far as needing a spiritual element to this, it's coming from that place of mystery. So if you would say, I really want to heal, so other people would be able to say, I pray to Allah, I pray to God, I pray to Shiva, you would be able to say, I want to draw on that part of this reality that has not yet been explored, but that comes everything into being. We can't answer how we manifest. We've no idea. Science has no idea. We've no idea what consciousness is. We've no idea what the purpose of life is. So there is huge mystery there. So that's yeah.
I can totally connect to that. I appreciate
Go into
it.
the mystery. You go into unknown. You go into your shadow where all your emotional junk you've dumped into, and face that.
Yeah.
There's a question about going back to the archery test, whether it was archery training to develop one's agency and motivation.
I think, you know, if you loved the kung fu films of the 70s, you'll be familiar with the trope, the archetype of the student who gets beaten up and goes to the cranky old master who lives on the hill that nobody speaks to anymore, and he killed 1,000 people in a battle and he's traumatized and lives with the PTSD, and you knock on the door and he says, "Fuck off, I'm not training you, go away." You have to go back and knock again and again and again, and then he makes you scrub the temple stairs, and then he makes you do horrendous tortures to get through it. There's always going to be that, but we mustn't split. The Western mind splits the physical from the spiritual and the psychological. It's all the same thing. So you reclaiming your agency and you overcoming codependence is a spiritual task.
That adequate, Dave?
Would you offer any suggestions for like an entry point for, you know, if you're used to approaching things from an intellectual or reason standpoint, for venturing into that realm in a, you know,
easy way, 5 steps. Give me 5 steps that I can follow.
or just a source, so like a certain book, or you know.
Give me a guru to worship.
Yeah, no, I'd flip that one on its head. I would say, you, without reading anybody, without studying, take out a journal, a notepad and a pen and try and answer the questions: what is good? What is bad? What is reality? How should a person live? And see what comes up. Because you must have answers to these questions. Everybody needs answers to these questions, even if they're wrong or crazy or whatever. You've got to, in order to overcome trauma, you need a philosophical map of reality.
Boys, you threw it back at him. That's not what he wanted.
No, how do you know what I wanted? You're always, you know, making assumptions with little context.
He's trying to socialize the leader.
This is the thing with agency. So that gives you agency. So rather than being a receptacle of somebody else's ideas, you could come up with something. You might answer a question that's been hassling people for millennia. You just, you know, in your kitchen one day, just go, "Oh yeah, I didn't know I could answer it this way," and come up with something better. But you have to come up with something. What is reality? What's a good way to live? Why are we here? What is good? What is evil? These are questions for people who are looking to overcome trauma that have to be answered.
That have to be answered.
For you. And don't take on somebody else's system. You do your own thing.
Those are really great questions.
What's the follow-up talk, Carol, you want? Is that after or right now?
Eve, I think that would be good homework for the group. If every one of us maybe take some time to explore those things on our own and come back next week and talk about it.
I'll make a note. That's a request. But we got Richard here, so we got to take advantage.
Do you think that all narcissists are demonic or evil? Because I thought that he had a spell over me. So I was down in New Orleans and I went to a high priestess of voodoo to break the demonic spell he had over me and to ruin him.
Whoa.
And, you know, I dragged my daughter along with me and we did a series of exercises down in her house in New Orleans, and it was pretty productive. Like, I felt like I saw the light after that. Like, I don't know if it was just that I just saw the light or if she actually did something, but I really have been having an easier time when I look back at it. Like, the demonic hold over me is gone.
So the human beings, like, let's talk about human nature for a second. It doesn't matter where in the world you go, at what point in history, there were shamans, there were witches, and there's magic. And you could say, no, 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 where there's religion, there's no magic. And I'm like, look at any religion. It's nothing but magic. It's nothing but rituals, spells, incantations, miracles. So there's two options here, and they lead to the same answer. Either we as human beings, we need magic. We're magical creatures. We love symbolism. We love ritual. That's how we access the unconscious. Or magic is real and it exists. To an alien flying around our planet right now, neither answer matters. To me as a life coach or a therapist, neither answer matters. What matters in your story, Leslie, is that afterwards, you felt pretty good. You felt better. You can get on with your life. And so the exact mechanics, it becomes like a philosophical question you can never really have an answer to, because we can't see outside of our reality. We're all in it. We're all subjects. We never get the objective point of view. So I would say, rather than fight it, use it. So I'm the guy, I would say I'm not a particularly religious person, but when I'm doing interpersonal coaching with people, I send them back to their root religions. I send them back. If they were raised Muslim, if they're raised Catholic, like, try and go back. See if there's anything there that you can recover. And it's powerful. Why would it be powerful? Because these are the rituals, these are the archetypes that were put in place when they were kids. So it might work purely within the descriptions of Jungian psychology, or it might be something more. Ultimately, you want to feel good and be able to get on with your life, right?
Right. So you're right. I believe there's some kind of demonic hold with these narcissist, sociopath, cluster B, demonic entities, and we just happen to fall into the cup that day. I don't know.
Yeah, it could be. It could be. The thing to remember is, like, with narcissists, psychopaths, and people who are this way, they are manifesting CPTSD. They were children once, and they were traumatized. They were really, really hurt children, and if they were raised in a different environment, they wouldn't have turned out that way. So the behavior is demonic. The behavior is evil. But somewhere in there's a child still, no matter what they're doing.
Is there possibly a hereditary element as well for some of the behaviors?
Could be.
Some of the tendencies?
I don't believe there is, and there's no scientific evidence that there is, but it's one of these really persistent beliefs that nobody seems to be able to shake, which is that genetics determine personality. I think your genetics have zero interest in your personality. I think your genetics don't care if you're straight, gay, if you like vanilla ice cream or pistachio. It doesn't care. Genetics is there. Genetics' only imperative is repeat me, carry me, repeat me, procreate. Doesn't care about anything else. That's my personal view. Psychologists are obsessed with the idea of a genetic root to personality because it makes us scientifically relevant. And I don't think we're particularly scientifically relevant. I think psychology is a fringe subject that belongs as an aspect of philosophy.
Oh, yeah, a sub-philosophy.
Well, I don't know.
Okay.
For my 4-year-old son, I see, I've seen, even when he was 4 months old, some tendencies that seem like they're parallels.
When he was 4 months old?
Yes. Like if I was doing something he didn't like, he would try to hit me in the face.
That's what babies do, mate.
I know, but
All babies do that.
I'm not, that's
All
just one thing I'm tossing out there, but I mean, it does seem like there might be. I know it's a complex question that really can't.
This is unanswerable. We're going to waste time. Richard's
Yeah, and I would add to that. We've all got to be very careful of projection, like the idea of like projecting onto a baby. Babies can be little fuckers, absolutely, and they are in a highly narcissistic stage. That's where Freud identified the term narcissism, was in babies and in toddlers, because they're little assholes. They don't care about anything other than themselves, because they have no sense of like, I'm an individual, you're an individual, daddy's tired right now. They're just like, feed me, fucker, or I'm going to hit you in the face.
That's what I get in the group. What's the difference?
Feed me, D, or else.
Yeah, I get that all the time. So let's go swing back to codependence.
Okay.
There is a question by Alex which assumes you've healed from codependence, which I remember you stated that you have not.
I'm on my way. I'm doing
And then
better.
there's another question about what do you think the future of codependence therapy is. So that's basically the same thing.
Hit me with what was Alex's question?
Alex is, she wants to hear about your healing from codependence, which is premature.
Your journey. I want to hear your journey.
We had that earlier.
Yeah, no, I think the whole, I mean, it is a problem for all human beings. We have to cooperate. We have to work with each other. You're always going to have to forego at some point your needs for the needs of the group, for the needs of your partner, for the needs of your children. It's the key question for me on codependence is, are you neurotically driven by an anxious desire to serve? And that is the key. If you're wiping yourself out and self-sacrificing because of to free yourself from an anxiety, that's a real problem. That's a real problem.
That's defining it. Now, what's the path for the future of codependence therapy or healing? Or
there has to be so I've laid it out when I was looking at this last time. The way I laid it out was more to do with philosophy than psychology. I said, what's the problem? Well, the problem is codependents offset their own needs for the needs of others, and they seek to serve. And I said, okay, well then what's its opposite? And its opposite would be saying no to other people and engaging in self-interested action. So right away, you can see if we create this false dichotomy between a codependent and narcissist, the opposite of codependency would be selfishness, would be narcissism. So then you start going, aha, there is a thing in psychology called healthy narcissism. What is that? Because I don't want to use the term narcissism because it's got such bad overtones. So I called it self-interested action. You just engage in self-interested action. And I think you would be looking to retrain yourself into doing that realistically, and I'm being honest with you, over a period of years, probably about 2 years of quite disciplined action, which when you think like most of us might get like 85 on the planet, it's quite a lot. It's a long time, but I can't see enough because you want it to be unconscious. So you're taking a major childhood taboo that says never do that. And then every day for 2 years, consciously and awkwardly, you're going, no, I'm going to do the thing that suits me. No, I'm going to do the thing that I want to do. I'm going to put me first, in the hope that after 18 months to 2 years, unconsciously, with no neurotic compulsion, you would just naturally and easily be able to engage in self-interested action.
now, I would say that that doesn't seem to match your path based on the Malaysian story. So the Malaysian story, you had the blood spell on you. Then you went to find the teacher, and the teacher started giving you teachings, but there is a condition with those teachings.
Yeah.
You must now fight evil and whatever the demon target you set. So now you're serving.
I said fight the demons of the apocalypse. So,
yes.
So you've got to know, what are the demons of the apocalypse?
Yeah. So now, but you've taken on this new identity and role, not just codependent of neurotically serving people's needs and forgetting yourself. Now you're fighting the demons of apocalypse.
Well, that's what they told me to do. I'm just a guy from Birkenhead. I don't know
Visiting your
about
dreams twice a week. So.
Yeah, I don't know about demons. He does. It's an interesting dream. The first time that he came, he was like, it was him and a whole group of people came, like old masters in this dream. And we were out in space, and I had to show them the face of my mother and show them the face of my father. And then I had to show them the face of my mother's mother, my mother's father. And we were going back through my lineage, and they were checking me out, and they're going, okay, we'll see what happens with this guy. Then the next phase of the dream was they took me back down to Earth, to the Malaysian jungle, where we built a spaceship that was covered in Pali, old Malay script. The script. And then every night when they come now, we're building craft, we're building aircraft. Again, the Jungian archetype for this would be, and by the way, I don't fly the plane. I sit on the plane as like, I'm this executive dude who goes, this plane seems okay, but we're gonna have to change the seating there, the wings over there. And then I look at that and I go, what's the explanation psychologically? I give people the means to navigate through life. I put them back, but I don't fly their planes for them. I don't fly planes. I build them, and then I give them to people, and I go, you fucking fly your own plane. So the archetypal answer to that is like, this project is about building craft. building craft so that people can move through life in a way where previously they would have been trapped and imprisoned. The codependency side of it is I don't see myself as being a different guy because of the Malaysia experience. That was a very selfish experience. I was heartbroken and in a lot of trouble. And then I was out of trouble and I was okay. I could live again.
Could you have lived again if you had just said, wow, what a weird thing for somebody to do to somebody, and just, walk away and develop your, your sensibility some other way without feeling a need to go in and get that demon spell undone?
See, now what you need to understand, John, is I'm British. And when we want to say something like, I was suicidally depressed, we say things like, I wasn't feeling very well at the time. So what I said was, I wasn't feeling very well at the time. It's British understatement. No, I wouldn't still be here if I didn't go there. I was very mentally sick, very, very mentally sick. And there was drugs, there was alcohol. One way or another, I would have disappeared from the face of the planet, I'm sure.
You were like rock bottom, or really?
Yeah, but I was in a bad way, really bad way.
To go back to your description of the demons of apocalypse, Alex has a reflection back with her spin.
Yeah.
And I wanted to see how you hear it, because sometimes I run into this issue where people reflect back a total distortion of my meaning.
What was Alex's reflection back?
Do you want to read it, Alex, or you want me to read what you wrote?
Yeah, sure. Like I think what I was hearing from you, Deef, is how can a move
Richard.
away? Oh, sorry. What'd you say?
The Richard comment, fighting demons.
Yes, right. And I thought I heard you say that codependency, like moving away from codependency, seems to not be in. How can you do that and still be responding to a call to fight demons in the apocalypse? And to me, I heard the demons, like if somebody were to say that to me, I'd be like, this is a call for me to present as good in the world, and whatever my morality is, however I do that, and I can scale that up or down depending on what my ability to take care of myself is, right? Some days I can present that in a bigger way, Richard. Other days I can't.
You got the gist, right?
I got the gist. Yeah, no, I think there's an awful lot to it, Alex. I think that is part of it. It's try to put yourself in my position. Imagine that all of you lived that experience yourself, and it's in your head. So obviously, I'm not I'm not fully crazy. I'm only half crazy. I go back and I go, did I misremember that? Did that happen? Remember, I met this guy as a Sufi mystic in. I don't think you have it in America, a chicken shack. It wasn't a mystical first meeting. We were in a shopping mall. It was a chicken shack. I was eating fries and chicken whilst this guy is looking at me, and he's covered in like beads and amulets and stuff. And I'm like this funky looking dude. So I look back and I went, well, how crazy was I? As I just said to John, I was really mentally ill. How mad was I? If I was suicidal, did I dream it? And then I have to go back through my Facebook posts, and I'm like, okay, what's the first weird part of the story? That we met a news presenter, a news anchor, a famous chick. She was on TV every night. We met her in a shopping mall, and her favorite thing to do is horseback archery. And I'm like, that's weird. That's not a thing. So I've looked her up. And you go back and back, and you start thinking, well, try and unpack this and make it fit. And I can't. And I've learned to accept there's not supposed to. I'm supposed to carry this experience as something that is outside of my normal life that challenges me every day.
Right there. That was my point I was trying to say.
Right.
You're now
I haven't integrated the experience.
Of surrendering to the uncertainty. You're not trying to make a rational, egocentric narrative.
Right.
Which is what Alex's narrative was, that you chose and you're trying to be a good person, blah, blah,
yeah,
blah.
Right. Bullshit. Right. So it's not, and where I come back to, I've given you the PG version of the story. It was very, very, very strange. I could speak Arabic in these dreams. I was flying through the seven heavens of in Islam, there's different levels of heaven. And there's dark jinn. Not all jinn are bad, but the dark jinn, the demons, had infiltrated heaven. So we'd have to go and fight them. And you could kill them with words, but you had to speak Arabic. And you could say a magic spell in Arabic, and it would just make a great film, right? You see a demon, it's killing people, and you go, and and it goes boom, and it hits them and crushes them, and then they're gone. It was very, very, very involving, and I didn't just dream it. It was like an acid trip. It was real to me. All of it was real to me. It was like I'd wake up and I'd be like, "Fuck, what was that? What's happening?" It wasn't. Yeah. I was freaked out, really freaked out. So I'm downplaying it because I know how crazy it makes me sound. What I'm left with now is like, what did I believe before the experience? Okay, so I had already had other experiences before the experience, and I've had experiences afterwards as well. Demons, what is a demon? When we say demon, it means different things in different periods of time. Is it like a jinn in Islam? No. Is it like the demons that the Greeks would speak to? The demons that the Greeks spoke to were between worlds. This was about evil. What's an apocalypse? Are we in the apocalypse now? And you go, no, the apocalypse is the end of the world. It's Book of Revelations. It's weird stuff. It's like demons with 7 tails spiking people in the bum. And you go, no, actually, apocalypse means revealing. So demons are illusion, and the apocalypse is revealing. It's the opening. It's the veil of illusion coming off. That happens every day. Every moment that we're alive, we're living the apocalypse. We right now, this is as crazy as I'll be in all the time I'm speaking to you, I promise, is we're living it now. We're right here now in the fight. We're already born into the fight. We just didn't know it. That's the revelation. That's the unveiling, is seeing that all of us are here to fight the demons of the apocalypse. The apocalypse is this moment as it unfolds.
So the unveiling could be like self-deception or seeing through the lies of society, or
it's the unveiling of samsara. It's the Buddhist tradition, but it's the unveiling of the mystery of the moment. So every second that goes past, the veil is moved. I didn't know what was going to happen, and now I see, and now I see, and now I see, and now I see. So in Islam, in mystic Islam, in Sufism, if you're a true Sufi, if you're a true warrior, that's why you constantly pray. You're constantly praying to God. Every second that you're alive, you remind yourself there is only one God and his name is Allah. There is only one God and his name is Allah. It's a perpetual momentary thing. I can't talk about this on my channel. It's way too much. It's way, way too much. And there's people with delusional spectrum disorders. They'd just pop a gasket if I start talking like this. Just here across the globe, people just going ping, ping, ping.
Oh, that's funny.
So that's what I think fighting the demons of the apocalypse is. I think every human being is on the planet to do that. Fight it in themselves, fight it in others, fight it in the world.
So there's a request to go back to get clarity on the cure for codependence. Were you prescribing or describing a spiritual experience as the cure, the treatment, the magic X factor?
We've got to remember that story is he wasn't curing me of my codependency. He was curing me of a particular spell. I've not asked what the cure for codependency is, and maybe I should. I could even go back to Malaysia and speak to him. I can reach out to him and speak to him. But what I'm personally working on without asking him for help is those 2 elements. One is helping people to reconnect with self-interested action. And there has to be some work done around that internal parent, because we're all talking to people all day, every day who not all, but many, most, were raised with normal parents who didn't hate them, who didn't want them to be dead. And so their way of processing reality is completely different. We talk the same language, we nod at the same time, we have that commonality of experience and go, ooh, water's wet, isn't it? But they're not living the same life that you're living or that I'm living. They're just not. They're in a totally So codependency, the reason why I think it's hard is because it's right down in the hardware of the computer.
So the self-interested action, I think that's easier. Or wait, saying no is harder. So what about, there's all this talk about boundaries and teaching people to say no. So how do you teach someone to say no who's conflict averse?
Yeah, that's actually not that hard.
I mean, it's not hard to teach, but how hard is it for someone who's conflict averse and passive?
Yeah, no, it's
do
what
it.
I mean is it's not that hard to overcome. The
Okay.
wrong way to do it, the wrong way that seems obvious is I can't say no, so I'll learn to say no. I would say that's how I did it. Don't do
Yeah.
it like that. It's really
doesn't work.
clunky. It hurts, and it's odd. If you have an internal philosophical overhaul and develop your own moral philosophy, your boundaries will develop quite naturally. By not having good parents and not having any real genuine sense of self-worth, you're stolen of the ability to have a moral philosophy. So now we as adults have to awkwardly, find a way back to that so that we can answer the question, what is right and what is wrong? You're only ever going to say no. A boundary is always a no. A boundary is always a limit. How the fuck do you know what a limit is? You don't know what right and wrong is. Nobody showed you what right and wrong is. How are you going to defend yourself? Nobody showed you had value. So you have to develop a moral philosophy for yourself. You have to know what your values are, live in accordance with them. And if you have something that is precious, that you perceive as precious, you'll automatically defend it. So every codependent does this. You won't say no for yourself. You won't stand up for yourself. But if you have a kid and somebody attacks that kid, you'll pull their fucking arms and legs off. So you have the ability and the bravery to pull somebody's arms and legs off. You just won't do it for you. So it becomes a self-worth issue.
So developing a moral philosophy, that's the key, or one of the keys.
For me, it's the key. It's absolutely essential. Yeah. It's the hack. If you want to hack, that's the hack. And then, the socialization thing is down to exposure.
What gets in the way, or what's the obstacle for developing a moral philosophy?
Intellectual wankery.
Intellectual masturbation?
Yeah, don't masturbate intellectually.
Advice giving, soothing, all the codependent, annoying behaviors.
Well, I mean, yes. And this is why I say to people, you've got to do the emotional literacy work, because as codependents, as parentified children, fawn responders, we're terrified of our feelings. So you've got to do the emotional literacy work so you won't start doing the philosophy. Because if you develop a true moral code, your own personal philosophy, you're breaking a taboo. Mummy didn't want you to have a moral philosophy. Daddy didn't want you to have a moral philosophy. They don't want you to be able to pull the veil off. They want you as a good little blinded slave. So even if they're dead, when you start to do this, you'll get triggered. You'll be like, I'm not allowed to do this. I'm going into the room that they told me to never go in. So if you've not developed your emotional literacy, you'll go out of your heart and into your head. So what's good? Well, when people say good, it's a culturally profound statement from the 1600s and the pre-industrial. No. What do you think is good?
Yeah. Well,
not the history of fucking humanity. What do you think is good?
Isn't it possible to adopt a guiding moral philosophy? Like for instance, looking at Carl Rogers and in some cases Nietzsche, you talked about in some of your presentations, to have this idealistic sense of connecting genuinely with other people, having this unconditional sense of positive regard for them, and that somehow that connection will be something that'll be a benefit to other people as well. Because if you're whole and you're sharing of yourself and you let them in, you're kind of vulnerable, and you're actually vulnerable to narcissists based on your philosophical approach to life. And I think I came into this late because of that, and not so much because of mommy and daddy issues. And I learned maybe I need to retool how I go about my philosophy.
John, so you're claiming you don't have mommy and daddy issues, and you don't
not
have
to the same degree
issues.
Not well.
That's your premise.
I think
that's your argument.
Richard
sees it.
Not in a typical way that is
laughing?
talked about in codependency in this context. No. But we can talk about that another time. I do have some issues, but not to the degree, and not in the same way. I don't have the same kind of upbringing. That
I don't need to change my moral philosophy. Is that, John? Is that your argument?
I'm saying that some moral philosophies can be deceptively lure you into being vulnerable to a narcissist. And if you're trying to do good in the world and fight the demons in the way you think, maybe from
do you know what good in the world is for you, or is it implanted by anemic psychotherapists?
Well, no, I think you just take a lot of things in from different sources over, and then,
So you just have
and go
vague
with what-
sources of the world that's telling you how to be a person.
Yeah, well, I mean, there are certain things that keep coming back to you and
See,
say, yeah, that
what I'm
does
saying
sound-
doesn't even hit. It just blocks off his
Well,
ego
when
narrative.
you're talking about being vulnerable to a narcissist, if the moral philosophy you're pursuing makes you vulnerable to predators, it is the wrong moral philosophy, sir.
That's good. See, I can't do that. That was a nice.
Yeah, I got that Zen. You've got to learn. You've got to go to Kuala Lumpur and learn to draw the bow. You've got to draw the bow, man.
That's the wrong.
I nearly broke my thumb on that fucking thing. It's an old-ass bow. It was 50 meters away. I must have tried 80 times, and my thumb was huge. He came over. He went, "Oh, you hit it. Okay, that's good." I'm like, "Look at my thumb." So yeah, John, it's the right moral philosophy. There's no implicit. I'm not saying turn the other cheek. That's why I talk Nietzsche, because Nietzsche was about bringing that blood back to the anemic elements of Christianity, that we don't even know if that was what true Christianity was. Because Nietzsche was a kind of a conspiracy theorist. People think he was anti-Christian. He wasn't anti-Christian. He wanted Christianity to be authentic. He wanted it to have red-bloodedness to it, passion to it. So we have different manifestations of Christ. We have the warrior, we have the rebel, and then we have turn the other cheek, be a good slave, and be rewarded in the afterlife. And it's like, well, dude, is this the same guy who's talking? So we want that, like, from me to you, I think that you should be able to say, as a man, as a human being, you have a right to be in the world. And if anybody fucks with that, you hit them. Now, it might be physically, or it might be psychologically, or it might be a no, or you might cut them out of your life, but you stand up for yourself. That's what your parents are supposed to say. If you're getting bullied at school and you go home and say, this big kid is punching me, they're supposed to tell you to defend yourself.
Well, but maybe Nietzsche was not necessarily being prescriptive always, or maybe it was an element of.
Yes, Richard, you don't understand Nietzsche. But I'm not going to tell you a better understanding of Nietzsche. I'm just saying you're wrong, Richard.
He was being prescriptive with that, John, for sure. If you read the gay, sorry, John, just a second. If you read the Gay Science, it's prescription. It's 100% prescription. What he's doing is he's saying we've drained something that is powerful and that gives the people power and turned it into slave programming. And we should reclaim the space. It's very prescriptive. This is why some people say that Nietzsche is not truly a philosopher, because it is very prescriptive.
But in the slave morality, perhaps he's describing that if you're, let's say you can't get out of the circle.
Oh, this is amazing. This is like maybe person. Oh, maybe you didn't understand it right. Let me just make up some bullshit that makes you sound like you don't understand Nietzsche. I'm just going to make up words and just keep talking.
One of the things you got to be
words out, and then you can decide whether they have no merit.
No, I'm stopping you. Richard's the guest. I want to respect his time.
I'm raising a question about something that he has talked about. And
what's your question?
The question is about.
What's the core question? We're talking about moral philosophy. Richard gave a very nice Zen 1 answer, which is almost a showstopper. Like, if your moral philosophy makes you vulnerable to narcissists, that's a wrong moral philosophy.
No,
that's an amazing.
It's triggering, John, right? Like we've talked about this before. John, you likely are triggered by something that Richard said. Like,
well, no, I can identify with it, but I think that I often bring out in these meetings.
What's your question to Richard?
Of practical situations.
Fuck your practical. What's your question?
I'm talking about.
What's the question? You said you're not being heard. What's your question?
I was in the middle of making a point about.
I don't want your point. I want a question. Richard's our expert today. You are not expert.
Here's the question: if you are,
if you're a savage,
you can't always sock the bully in the mouth.
This is fun.
You could be endangering yourself and your family.
He answered that because I said he answered that question.
The narcissists that control our whole economic system because that.
You got muted, homie.
Because you're not letting me moderate. How are you not letting me moderate? Because he answered that question. Richard said, if you have a moral philosophy that makes you vulnerable, then it's your moral philosophy that's wrong.
There's something that's happening here that's really useful for everybody who struggles with codependency, which is when we get to the core issue, which is this is a core issue. The superego kicks in and starts going, no, 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 because it's the taboo. We're moving into the area that's the taboo area. So as Alex says, it's like a triggering. We've hit an internal minefield. So you jump out of heart, which is where I'm taking you to, because I'm like, be red-blooded, fight, and you go, oh, no, that sounds dangerous. Whoop, straight up into head. There must be a way of intellectualizing my way out of this. But you're right, because you're vulnerable. It makes you vulnerable. If you go into heart and you do what I'm suggesting, there's risk. There is tremendous risk. And so if we're risk averse, that can be part of codependency. It's a risky world. It's a risky world. And we have to be courageous enough to take those risks, which takes us into the realm of Adler and all of that, where Adler would say 90% of the problems people face, lack of courage. It's just a simple lack of courage.
Okay, so this is sort of diving into fake morality. I liked your video on that.
Oh,
a lot
yeah.
of codependents put on this mask of morality and they fight for the moral high ground.
Right.
So then it's like the social justice warriors jumping on that. And if Alex wants to defend the social justice warriors, here's an invitation. But because codependents take this weak, anemic thing, they want to feel powerful. So they take on the moral high ground and then fight for the illusionary victims or fight for this. And they're like really vicious there, but they can't fight for themselves.
I mean, where you see the worst elements of social justice warriors, I would say that goes beyond codependency. You have borderline personality disorder there. Tremendous amount of borderline personality disorder. But it's an unfortunate, like, strictly speaking, I'm a social justice warrior. I take the information that's usually held by the elites of psychiatry and psychoanalysis, and I go, there you go. I'm like, it's socialism in action. I'm going, there you go, my comrades. Take everything. These people were trying to hold it back. Where it gets nasty is, I think, when it gets hijacked. And every endeavor gets hijacked by people who are a minority. They're very sick, and they're very vocal, and they're very violent. So unfortunately, the social justice warrior template is just so attractive to the borderline personality disorder. They can jump on a team and scream at somebody and scapegoat them and stone them and hide behind the message and the group. I've had borderlines admit this to me. I've had borderlines say to me, I join certain groups. The last lady I spoke to, it wasn't a face-to-face, it was a text conversation. She said, I'm so angry with my father that it was some group that she was involved with. This is the only way I can release my family trauma, she said. So it's, it's not that the social justice warrior groups have a bad agenda. I think that there's just a lot of hijacking that's gone on there.
This is what I feel, or this is when someone jumps in and then goes a moral high ground, I feel the transference of their trauma energy. And it's really creepy when sexual trauma gets transferred. A lot of people with sexual abuse, they're like super boundary porous, and they'll bleed their sexual creepiness on me.
Yes. Yeah, and you can feel it. You're absolutely right. What you're feeling is an energetic shift. And then you can ask the question, if you're crazy enough to want to light the fuse on the dynamite, which is, what are you really angry about?
No, I did that, but
that's really, really dangerous, because there's
more angry.
Say again?
That just provokes them.
Yeah, but it provokes because they know that they're being disingenuous. I'm actually angry about this. I can't attack the person who hurt me because I don't feel strong enough to, which is the position of the fragile narcissist and the malignant borderline. So I'll do this instead and make myself feel better about it. But it's like when people say, what's my political ideology? I'm like, I'm left leaning. I want to help people. I want to protect people who are being bullied and attacked and everything else. And then they'll go, have you seen what the leftists are doing? And I'm like, oh, that's a bit embarrassing. So when people's codependency, as you rightly say, and then other mental health issues bleed into it, everything starts to morph and distort. And before you know it, you're looking at something that isn't really about protecting people anymore. There's more focus on attacking power than there is on protecting weakness. And then you go, the energy's dissipating in the wrong direction here. And George Orwell, who was a left-winger, British left-winger, he was one of the first people to point this out. He said it's actually And 1984 is a left winger criticizing the potential wrongdoings of other left wingers, and he said we've got to be careful that we don't just become that we. His whole question was, do you love the people who are weak and who are poor, or do you just hate the rich? And if you just hate the rich, that's no good.
No one got triggered from the fake morality stuff. Really? No social justice warrior you're defending? Alex, where are you?
I'm
Nothing?
actually pretty even today. I'm good. Thank you.
You don't want to go fight or say that social justice warriors are doing a good thing and all the predators are being shot down because of that amazing cause?
No, Richard's really resonating with me. I'm going to spend a lot of time with your stuff, Richard. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Thank you, Richard.
No problem
So
at
that trigger is disarmed for at least a week.
You can deal with it next week when I'm not here on your own, mate. This is what I'll do. I'll just leave mines and then be like, right, see you guys.
So, Richard, I've got a question for you.
Sure.
I see.
And did you find yourself in a state of in your life through your experiences, a state of cognitive dissonance? And if yes, what did you do to help yourself get out of it?
I think I'll answer this the way I answered the last question you asked me, which is it takes a lot of honesty and self-awareness. You've got to be really honest with yourself. So cognitive dissonance really is stress. So I'm big into emotional literacy. So if I'm not feeling good or I'm cranky, I'm like, the fuck am I getting all cranky and impatient with people over? Why am I stomping around the house? Like, what's my issue? And sometimes that can be cognitive dissonance. Sometimes, you know, it can be, I'm trying to do two different contradicting things at the same time, or I'm trying to do a thing that contradicts a belief that I hold over here or a value over here. And all of that is enormously stressful. Looking at our values is really, really important, because if you live in accordance with your values, no matter how much your life materially sucks, you will be happy. If you live contrary to your core values, no matter how wealthy or successful you are, you'll be miserable as fuck. So try and remember that. If anybody ever says to you, why is that celebrity snorting themselves to death, drinking themselves to death? They've got all that money and all that fame. Why are they so miserable? You can be all clever and be like, well, if you're living in accordance with your values, you'll be happy. But if you're living out of accordance with them, you look like that guy. You look like Prince. You look like Michael Jackson. You look like, you name them. You name them. Like, it's just clearly we're very miserable. Very, very miserable.
Now, what if you have ADHD level skills of actively dissonancing your belief systems and you're fracturing your memory?
Thank you for that.
So that's where the question's coming from.
That was meant for me, but go on.
Oh,
Please.
okay.
By all means, please answer.
That passive aggressive comment just went right over my head. I had no idea.
But I got it, so that's okay. We're good.
Well, this dissociation often is a manifestation of an emotional flashback. It's the desire to just disappear, and it probably is a survival mechanism that's a holdover from childhood. So if you deal with the dissociation, a lot of that just goes away.
Now, this is a quirk that I don't get. So in meetings, sometimes people fight to get the spotlight,
right?
To be visible. But at the same time, if I give them too much spotlight, they want to hide.
Right.
So why do people, it seems like people cry about wanting to be seen, but they also not want to be seen.
Yeah.
Why are they consistent? Do they want to be seen or do you want to be invisible? Just choose one.
They want to be seen by a loving, kind, parent or substitute parent in the form of a lover. And maybe this is a poor substitute for that. And they'll go, I want to be seen. And then they'll be like, this feels awkward. I can't deal with this anymore. And then they want to bounce. I think that's a very codependent way of dealing with contact with humans, is cycling through oversharing, counterdependency, oversharing, counterdependency. A lot of that is down to just being emotionally dysregulated, I think.
What about fear of intimacy, that framing?
Yeah, it's the same thing. Counterdependency, fear of intimacy. So we crave it and we fear it. Codependence, my hypothesis with codependence, this is new, is that we actually are terrified of intimacy because we never knew love. So your first model for a loving relationship in adulthood would have been the relationship with your parents. But if they never really loved you, they just only showed you time and attention transactionally, depending on when you were giving them what they wanted. Authentic love will be completely alien. So if somebody loves you just for you, you'll be like, what's this? Is this boring experience, this weird, dull experience I'm going through, which a lot of people complain about. They find a normal person who loves them and then they're bored.
So boring, Stacy. Yes, boring. Keep going.
I know. That's what I'm trying to tell you. It's boring.
See?
Little excitement.
Yeah. So you're looking for the game, which is to be transactional, which is like what do I need to do to win a piece of love? And if they go, no, I love you unconditionally, they're basically saying, oh, that game you want to play, that's all off the table now. And you go, well,
But also you don't believe it. You don't believe it.
You can't believe it.
And
You
it's
can't
not
believe it. 100%.
No, you're terrified of the intimacy. It has nothing to do with your belief.
Well, I think when we learn through our lives that with love comes abuse.
No, you were foundational. Richard said Richard, didn't you say as a child you're groomed?
Yeah, I think if your first loving relationship is transactional, and yeah, if, as Stacey says, if it's dangerous as well, like if the game is, if you play it well, you'll receive not love but time and attention. But if you fuck up, you'll get slapped physically or emotionally. Then that creates adrenaline. Then you're like, oh, the stakes in this game are high. That's how people get addicted to gambling. And let's make no mistake about it, those of us who were raised in abusive environments, every time the front door closed because your abusive parent came home, that was a gamble. That was a gambling moment. Will it land on red or black today? Let's see. So I think that's where the addiction, like gambling and that kind of activity, it really appeals to people raised in nasty childhood conditions.
Yeah, that sounds exciting.
The way I just described it,
yeah,
some of you looked excited.
Every single moment matters. You could die.
Right.
That's like really exciting.
Yeah, there's a certain intensity of experience. But
I'm
then
not
we
jealous.
say, yeah, but then we turn around and say, I want a nice, stable relationship with somebody who loves me. And then you get there and you go, this feels, it's alien and dull.
So you have to train your brain to be able to sit in that.
Yeah. Yeah.
You have
to
to
want
have that
that.
affair with yourself, maybe.
Say again?
Maybe you have to learn to have that intimacy and affair of that kind with yourself first.
Yeah.
Learn to be safe within yourself with authenticity.
There's
Then
a
you
lot
can
of-
stand up and
there's a lot of-
receive. Yeah.
A lot of healing that has to take place first before we can engage in long-term intimate relationships, for sure.
Trauma and developmental angle. John, do you have something on that?
Trauma and me?
Or no, John.
The other John.
Other John. So I have an angle where that part of it's more development. And I think, Richard, you take the stance that it's more CPTSD and it's more trauma angled. But then I see people who take CPTSD and they project that as something they need to fix, or that's all the enemy. And they just blanket label all their problems as CPTSD instead of breaking down emotional literacy, intimacy, all the different layers so that they can work with it. They just try to fix the trauma.
Deef, just to clarify it, for me, to start, it was with the CPTSD. I had to get down to a level where I could actually function as a human being and not be crazy and get more than 4 hours sleep a night, which I did 3 years in a row.
Yeah, I would say that's your nervous system, but you're labeling CPTSD. Keep going.
Okay. So I'm not saying all my problems are CPTSD or stem from that. I'm saying that was the start of it. That was one of my issues that had to be dealt with first before I could then go deeper into the other underlying stuff.
So let's say a person is able to hack their nervous system using somatic practices. A lot of like TRE and IFS and whatever.
Sure.
EMDR, it hacks the nervous system, so it's calm. But let's say I'll make an argument it's a shortcut. Or even using NLP, Richard, it's a shortcut. You can get the belief fixed.
Neurofeedback.
No, I mean neurofeedback, but Richard uses NLP. So there's more addressing Richard.
No, sorry.
But it was inspired from John.
Well, what was John's question?
It's about sort of CPTSD. You address it as a trauma, and a lot of psychology addresses it as a trauma. You get rid of the trauma energy.
Yeah.
But I'm arguing if you prematurely get rid of the trauma energy, you lose the emotional intelligence or the lesson you should have learned. Why you got into the trauma? Because your map sucks. You did something stupid, you didn't see something. So you got to fix your map in addition to getting rid of the trauma.
Oh, so it becomes a question about different therapeutic modalities. Yeah, I don't like anything that patches over the problem, which NLP does. NLP definitely does it. The creators of NLP, I went to a seminar in London 2 years ago, and both of them, I'm not naming names, I can't get in any legal trouble here, but allegedly said to people who turned up to the seminar, something along the lines of, if you were abused as a child and you keep replaying that abuse on a daily level, you're abusing yourself, and so it's your fault. And they've been saying that since the 90s, but this is not the fucking 90s. You can't talk to people like that anymore. And there was a fucking uproar at the seminar, absolute uproar, because now we have new language for it. It's like, oh, victim blaming. Oh, so you're saying a child is, and that mentality has no place in the modern world and no place in therapy, and it's totally wrong. It's totally wrong. You can. It's like, I would say, like the Jim Carrey movie, The Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. You had a terrible breakup. You're heartbroken. We can wipe it. Do you want that? And if you say yes, who are you now? Who are you? What kind of a fucking drone zombie are you if we take out all of the human experience? It happened. Let's assume that we can learn from it. Let's assume that it happened with a purpose. That's the more of the philosophical, spiritual side of it. Exactly. I'm not saying it did. I'm not saying there's a God who determines that you shall suffer for a reason. I'm saying from a philosophical perspective, let's assume as a thought experiment that there was a reason. What's the reason? Is there a reason? What did you learn? Does it make the world better? Does evil lead to good? Again, these are like philosophical questions, but yes, I agree with you. As you said something about somatic therapies, I think if you can just eradicate the feeling, you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't do that. You shouldn't it's like saying, oh, I have an infection in my hand, just cut it off.
Okay, so this is, Alex jumped in here, and this is a common response I get. So she's defending the angle of my critique. So people have techniques where they can cover up the memories or process the trauma. And then they give this answer like, that story didn't matter.
Right.
And I can see their position, but then your angle of philosophy is, I'm sort of hearing that's being empiricism. I had a life experience. I must integrate or learn from it. And not just pick and choose my old stories.
Brutal and inhuman to me to say, oh, your story doesn't matter. I mean, I've said to people who want to stay stuck in story, like, don't be addicted to the story because your brain loves story and it just wants to repeat the story. That's no good either. It's the emotion in the story, but it definitely happened, and we should have a record of that. That's part of your life. That's just reality. We don't want to be reality deniers. I don't think. I think that's a mistake.
Okay, so now there's a question about daily practices for recovering codependence, and then after recovery, do you have to continue the practices? Would your 30-day trial accountability thing tomorrow, would that be a way they could explore that question of daily practices for recovery?
Oh, I don't think 30 days of jumping on for 20 minutes a day is going to undo childhood trauma. And I'd never suggest that to anybody.
Yeah, but they have a community and it's $50.
We have a community. It's and they go on every day. They pay their $50. They go on every day and they'll do different exercises. They share that with a supportive community. So in that space, they can break the old taboos. They can show who they are, what they want, and they can get positive feedback for doing that. You see real therapeutic breakthroughs there, but a real therapeutic breakthrough does not a recovery make. You know, it's good, it's great, but full-scale recovery is not going to happen inside of a 30-day anything. Even if it was 12 hours a day of therapeutic work, everybody comes to the table with a different level of trauma, a different level of experience. If we're talking authentic childhood trauma, adverse childhood environments that went on for years. It's going to take a while.
So after you recover, is there a need to continue practicing?
I'll let you know when I've recovered.
Okay, there's your answer, Brian.
Thank you.
Do you want to go any more about the 30-day challenge? I sent them to your YouTube channel to hear more about it.
Yeah, it's 30 days. There's like a video. There's a video and an audio that you do every day. We ran it as an experiment last month before the pandemic broke out, and people loved it. They got a lot from it. If you follow the exercises, if you give it like 20 to 30 minutes of your time for 30 days, you can get a lot done. But full-scale recovery is not going to happen like that. You'll get good skills from it for sure.
Richard, do you meditate?
Sorry?
Do you meditate daily?
I wish I could say it was daily. It's not daily, but it's frequently. It's very self-indulgent. I do it because I really like it. Yeah, really enjoy it.
About a future teaser. So let's say you're on this cause to fight the demons of the upcoming apocalypse. And let's say there's people here that want to help join you or want to assist in this cause. What are ways we can be more active participating?
I don't think you opt in or opt out. I think that you are doing that, and you can either accept it or not. That's actually that's a very Islamic tradition response. Did you know that in Islam you can't convert to Islam? You are a Muslim, you're just in denial about it. So you revert to Islam. That's their frame, which is a really cool reframe. It's like, nah, you're already with us. You're just confused. When you're ready to admit it, then we'll be here to welcome you back into the fold. So yeah, I would say this is your destiny anyway. You're already going to do this. You're going to be fighting demons internally, externally, and if there was like we should all do this, I think it's a commitment to truth. A commitment to truth and to telling the truth is the front line of that battle.
So that's pretty, that could be framed that, let's say you're destined to do, you don't know that you're supposed to be a warrior, you're on this team to fight demons, but your unconscious is looking for demons, and you're stuck in this repetition compulsion because you don't have the right framework. You've been born to be this warrior, so you're living this tortured fight, fighting ghosts and demons and just self-torturing yourself.
I don't know that only warriors fight demons. I don't think it's only warriors who do that. I think doctors and philosophers and people who just stay at home and raise their kids. I think it's just it's one frame for this reality that we're all in.
One frame. So what was this experience like, or is it different than other meetups, or what are some?
Oh, it's tremendous. This particular experience is a tremendous amount of fun for me because it's much more freeing. I don't feel there is a weight of responsibility. There was somebody I wanted to be when I was a kid. I'm a Generation Xer, and I really liked Christian Slater, and he had a film called Pump Up the Volume where he was a pirate DJ. Alex is laughing because she remembers Happy Harry Hardon, who used to wank loudly over the pirate radio.
Yeah.
I loved him. I watched that film like 15 times. I absolutely loved it. But one night he's joking around with somebody and they kill themselves. And then that's, he gets freaked out by that. And so I'm very, very unfree on the YouTube channel because I'm always like, one day I could say the wrong fucking stupid joke, make some stupid cock joke or something, and then find out that somebody's done something, bad. Either to somebody else or to themselves. So no, this has been good for me. It's a very, very pleasant experience. You have a nice group of intellectually curious people here, which is nice to see.
So that responsibility of being on YouTube and being terrified, or at least being aware that you could have one slight off,
Terrified is the right word. If somebody hurt themselves because of a joke I made, I would be very, very upset by that. So terrified is the right way to frame it.
And then that's sort of my angle with John yesterday, was saying that I live with PTSD every day. Just the terrors of social interactions are going beyond. It's not just them killing themselves. That social conformity energy just annihilates my sense of self.
Right. Yeah, which is why you asked me before about what the future holds. I think that and I said to you about the history, like the history of the Spartan Life Coach, which is one tiny little piece of YouTube real estate, internet real estate, in a fringe subject. I'm aware of that, but I do feel a responsibility based on what was built through time, through history. If I want to talk about fighting the demons of the apocalypse, if I want to be freer, I have to go elsewhere. And then I have to say, listen, guys, we're not doing PTSD, CPTSD, narcissistic abuse. I want to be free to talk about whatever the hell I want to talk about.
So that links to our earlier question about guilt and responsibility.
Right.
Codependents have issues with guilt issues often, or they complain about that.
Yeah.
And then you're sort of framing Jordan Peterson, or even the Christian angle of carry your own cross and find the biggest cross to bear. So then you can switch this excess guilt.
Well, you're massively putting words in my mouth. but okay, I like Jordan Peterson on that particular point. Yeah, go on.
By having a lot of personal responsibility, or having an aim, a vision, fulfilling some meaning, then you aren't as susceptible to the guilt jabs of narcissists or borderlines or relational things.
Yeah, perhaps. I'd never really thought of it that way. I'm glad that you heard something so nuanced and intellectually complex in what I said, because that's not what I meant. But I'm happy for you to think I'm that clever.
We're giving you worship. This is all, let's worship the guru.
I'd never thought that if you're carrying a heavy enough burden, you will be less susceptible to the barbs of guilt from manipulators, but it is undoubtedly,
That's how I evaluate. I'm not susceptible to guilt, because I value it myself, and I'm much harder than anybody else.
Right.
So I set my goals. If I meet it and I half-ass it, then I'm satisfied. So someone guilts me or thanks me, I don't give a damn about your opinion.
Right. Oh, it's an interesting reframe. I'd never thought of it that way, but yeah, that makes sense to me.
What's up with everybody? Nothing?
If you guys are good, I'm going to go and watch the sunset and then get some food.
There's